What's up, guys? Your boy Ollie with Ollie on Wheels. Today I got a 07 F150 doing a master cylinder, brake booster, and I'm going to be flushing and bleeding the brakes. So, diagnosed it last week. The reservoir keeps losing fluid. So, I originally thought it was maybe a bad or rusted out brake line. So, checked the whole vehicle for rusted out lines. Pressed the brakes. It started to get a pedal a little bit, and then once the vehicle starts running, I noticed that the fluid would start leaving the reservoir. So that was my first sign. The second sign is it had a very bad it was smoking really bad out the tailpipe. So this was my first time seeing this vehicle. I was like, hey, maybe it's just got other issues, with it or whatever. So long story short, the brake booster went bad and basically was pulling a vacuum on the master cylinder. So when I took the top off to put more fluid in it, it literally had a vacuum coming out of here. So after I did that, I pulled the master cylinder off just to check, the brake booster, and long below it, the internal diaphragm of the booster went bad, and it was just sucking brake fluid from this master cylinder, sucking brake fluid through the master cylinder to the engine. So the booster's here. So when the engine's running, it's pulling the vacuum through this line, and basically it was going back to the engine, and basically the engine was burning the brake fluid. So I didn't know that until after I added the fluid while I was smoking, and I felt the vacuum. So I immediately shut it off, and I'm gonna try to clean it up and do a bunch of different things. But yeah, I ended up pulling the master cylinder off, and it was a bunch of fluid just sitting inside of here. So the diaphragm ruptured, and that's what caused the brakes to go out. So I'm gonna be putting a master cylinder and a brake booster on it today. Cylinder out. First thing I'm gonna do is it's a 13 millimeters. There's one here, and there's one on the other side. Let's see. Yep, one there, 13 millimeters. And I'm gonna go ahead and unhook this connector. I'll get it with one hand. Probably not. So I'm gonna hook that connector, take the 13s out, and I'm gonna remove these two brake lines and try to get this master cylinder out the way. All right, so I got the master cylinder disconnected. So I removed those two 13s, both sides. I removed the hose that goes to the vacuum hose that goes to the engine, and also these are 13 millimeters. I use my crescent line wrench, to break these loose on both sides, but I just kept them pretty tight until I'm getting ready to put the new master cylinder on, so I don't leak out so much fluid just yet. But I got them loose to where they can easily come off, and I can swap the other master cylinder. So next I'm gonna get the brake booster. It'll be a couple bolts on the back side that hold it. So this is my the new master cylinder here, be installing, and that's the new brake booster. That sits on the inside. You got a couple bolts that hold it there. Then you got the brake pedal rod. Basically, when you hit the brake pedal, it pushes this in and out to kind of give you that thrust to press on the back side of the master cylinder. So I'm gonna go ahead and get this booster out. So I'm underneath where the brake booster is. So you got 4 bolts here. You got 1, 2, 3, 4. And they're 13 millimeters. So I'm gonna try a 13 in the swivel. Let's see, it's a 13 short extension, and I'm gonna see if I can try to put it on my impact tool to get it off. So I'm gonna remove those 13 mils, 4 of them, and this looks like a clip also that holds. Looks like you can press these little clips together. Basically keeps the tab from moving, something like that. So I'm gonna try to push these little tabs in. Kind of hard to see. So You can see it's got two little tabs. I can't do it with one hand. So I'm gonna press those in and basically push up on that. It should release that yellow clip. All right, guys. So I got the 4 bolts out and I got this out. So let me show you. So the only thing happens is the clip sits up here like this. All you gotta do is I pressed on these together and it popped right up and out. Then once you get that out, you'll see basically this will be on top of this with the actual switch. So the only thing you do, because it's gonna have this little pin in it, all you gotta do is pull that pin out. Once you pull the pin out, you should be able to wiggle. Do not pull, just slightly wiggle the actual switch. And I kind of move the pedal a little bit to kind of slowly walk it off. And then after you get that done, it basically just will pop off just like this till the pedal's free. Then once that's done, all you gotta do is just push it up. Probably gonna have to go from the front and kind of pull up on it, but the master cylinder should kind of be loose and you'll be able to pull it out. So I did have to remove the master cylinder to get it out, because it was actually in the way. It was blocking me. So I'm gonna see if I can pull it straight up. I can pull it straight up and out. Yeah, just like that. And we're good to go. So if you look in the booster, mind you, the booster's supposed to be super dry. See if I can get a good look at it. If you look in there, it is full of fluid because this diaphragm ruptured in here. And what was happening was all that fluid that's sitting there, it was going straight through here. It's getting sucked through by the vacuum hose and was going straight to the engine, was causing it to smoke. I personally thought it had a blown head gasket or something. But after I figured it out, diagnosed the brake issue, I realized this was the issue, why it was smoking. So this thing is full of brake fluid. And that should solve our smoking problem. So got an empty hole. Also, do not forget the spacer. Very important. So the spacer comes on the back side, and you have to transfer it to the new one. I do not think the new one comes with the spacer. It does not. So I will have to transfer that spacer from that one to that one, and basically just have to reassemble it. Also, one more thing. So when you take this rod off on the inside, it's a little black, almost like bushing. God dang it, I just dropped it up. Alright, so it's a little black bushing like that. Mine fell out. I didn't know exactly where it went, but this actually goes on the back side here. And it'll go through there. And once basically you put your switch together, it'll sit flush and flat. Alright, so how I did it, the little black bushing sits right behind it. Then it basically goes back on this way, but I give it just enough space to where this can slide between it. Yeah, and once you do that, it should slide right in. Just gotta I just wiggled the pedal a little bit to kind of easily get it on. And same thing, just easily move the pedal back and forth and just try to push it forward. It'll lock in just like that. Then once you do that, just get the little pin clip, and all it does is just slide just like that. Put your put your yellow tab holder back on. Let's see, that one like that somehow. Yeah, so one like that. Bam. Basically hold that clip from backing out, and that's pretty much in the inside. Right now the brake booster, it's all bolted back in. I got all 4 bolts back in. Brake switch is good, locked and secured. I'm gonna put the new master cylinder on it. So they tell you to bench bleed it. I'm not against bench bleeding at all, but I do mobile, so I don't always have a vise or somewhere to do the bench bleeding. So normally if I can't do it in my van, I'll put the master cylinder on the car and use my brake pedal as my actual bleeding. So that's normally what I do, but I'm not against bench bleeding if I had to like a vise or something to put it in. So I'm gonna put the master cylinder on the car, bolt it up, put plenty of fluid in it, and then I'm actually bleed it on the car without hooking these lines up. So get back to you and show you. So this is what I use to bench bleed it. Comes in a kit like this. Just hook the adapters up to the master cylinder here, another one there. It basically just put the fluid back in there. Just try to get all the air out of the master cylinder. And once there's no more air bubbles, I should be good to go. Then I'm gonna bleed all the brakes because it didn't run dry. So I'll get to that step after this, but first I'm gonna bench bleed it, make sure this gets all the air out, and then I'll head to the next step. All right, so I got all my fittings hooked up. I got one here, one on the opposite side, and basically it's the tubes run back into the reservoir. So all it's doing basically is pumping the air out, so you got straight fluid stream versus air bubbles coming out of there. So I'm gonna bench bleed it until the air bubbles stop and it's just a clear stream. So they fill it up majority of the way. I'll keep checking it just to make sure these lines are submerged. If not, it will introduce air back into the system. Then I'll have to start the process all over, but I'll keep checking this just to make sure that the lines are submerged in the fluid, and I'll go from there. So I'm gonna bleed this master cylinder, bench bleed it from the car, and I'll get back to you guys. So I got everything all together. Brake booster is in, master cylinder is in, lines are tight, cleaned up. Just gotta double check, put this connector back on somewhere. There we go. And so I'm getting ready to bleed the brakes. So it's multiple ways to do it. A lot of people, you can use the 2-person method, which is, you know, go to every wheel and have somebody crack the bleeder and then hit the brakes that way. Like I said, I'm mobile, so I'm usually by myself. So I use one of 2 ways. Since I'm usually by myself, I either use this pressure bleeder. So I got a pressure bleeder here, which all it does is add basically pressurized air and or brake fluid into the system, and basically all it does is pushes it out into the lines. So basically all I have to do is go to each line and crack them open. Sometimes I even hit the brakes a little bit to help it push that fluid out, and that normally helps me bleed my brakes. Or my second option is I usually use this. So I usually hook it up to, so this is the vacuum puller. So I just hook this up to the wheel, each wheel that I'm going to, and pull a vacuum on it. It will do the same exact thing. Either method will work. But personally, this is my favorite pressure bleeding because it's a lot quicker to me. And like I said, I'm usually by myself and it gets the job done. So I bought this kit. Comes with multiple adapters in it, but this is the specific one for this vehicle, and it's got a collar here. You can tighten the collar up and it can make sure this is tight, so once you add pressure it doesn't come out. So I got that, and it even comes with a quick disconnect. So it's just all plugged in. So basically I add pressure, probably about 10 pounds, and I'll go to each wheel, starting from the furthest wheel, which I believe will be the passenger rear, then start from the other side, the driver's rear, then come back to the passenger front, then the driver's side. It's normally the sequence you do when you're bleeding the brakes. Start from the furthest, then come to the closest. So I'm gonna pressurize it, probably about 10 pounds. I don't go too much more than 10 pounds, and that should be enough to get it going.